I know, it has been 2 months after my previous upload, and looking at the total views on my last videos, not only did you probably not know that, but you most definitely don't know who I am. But I still apologize for the delay anyway. I was just busy grieving Steve Jobs' death, and I took that feeling as inspiration to make another video because I don't want to grieve about my channel either, so at least something good and useful came out of his death. Apple, it is a company that's as American as itself and pie made of itself. It was founded by Steve Jobs, who unfortunately passed away at the age of 56. On the other hand, Nokia founder Frederick Edison died when he was 77, and this once again proves that just like their phones, the Nokia one lasted just a tad longer, in terms of their health that is. In the fame and legacy side of things, Edison is a forgotten name only existing in the past, so he's actually more similar to Nokia than I thought. Anyways, I have an intro, so let's cue that. Intro's over already? Anyways, you know what they say, an apple a day keeps a doctor away, words that Steve Jobs himself practically demonstrated, possibly causing his eventual death. I'm sorry to keep bringing it up, I'm just going through my dark, melancholic phase, that's all. But I will go into the history of Apple as a company and the legacy of Jobs himself, since he touched all our hearts, presumably with a range of multi-touch gestures which got annoying and borderline psychotic, let's face it. For those who don't know, Apple began underground in a basement from two identical twins in first names, Steve Jobs and Steve Wozniak, or Steve Jobsniak hashtag. It was also founded by Ronald Wayne, according to Wikipedia, so he's the forgotten and unwanted third wheel that was thrown and left in a dumpster, so I won't be mentioning him any further here. So anyways, those two people alone grew the company from the ground up, just like a vegetable, so this proves that Jobsniak support my Apple is really a vegetable movement, and good on them. Apple was also the name of the corporation owned by the Beatles, who also sued the Jobsniak for trademark purposes, so in order to retaliate, Jobs and Woz developed and manufactured a living, breathing humanoid and was given the directive to kill them. They called it the Yoko Ono 3000 and still runs to this day, and I assume the music read that she had was a technical glitch they forgot to fix. Apple built computers as well, of course, and when the Apple II became a mega success for them, they soon upgraded to giga success when they released the Macintosh in 1984. All things going so well until their profit margin began diminishing, so Steve had to make a tough choice.
Gentlemen, the Macintosh software dating game.
Welcome to the Macintosh software dating game.
Many at Apple thought Steve went too far, as it was hard to see him and hear him from that distance, and was eventually sacked from the company he started, turning from Steve Jobs to Steve. It's very gut-wrenching firing someone who was the core of Apple, and when you remove the core, the apple becomes much more edible and a lot more easier to consume without those annoying seeds. I guess Apple was smart in that instance. Steve started a new company called Next, which worked more in the workbench market. According to YouTube, where I got 100% of my research from, there's a video from Jobs building the company with a range of new employees, and things got off to a rough start.
Deep shit, because if we are unrealistic about this date, we make design decisions that we then have to go over, reiterate, throw out, start all over again.
Yes, I know what you're thinking. This is a video about a tech company. What is a woman doing here? Well, that's very typical of you, isn't it? Jobs thought he could replicate Apple's success, which is very ambitious. He can talk the talk, no doubt, but can he walk the walk? Judging by this clip, he can, but in a very funny looking way. Anyways, he then founded Pixar, which produced many great films in cinema, first of which being Toy Story. It accomplished a new feat in filmmaking that the majority of the film was in one take. This critic here, myself, is very impressed. In a sudden turn of events though, Apple bought Next, and Steve returned to where he came from. And with the aid of Microsoft, Apple kept afloat, so the feud of Apple and Microsoft ultimately ended abruptly and rebooted instantly after, typical Windows. It was a very complex love-hate relationship, thus proving that relationships starting on dating shows never continue to thrive. Even with the marriage counseling session, they just couldn't see eye to eye with each other. The battle of Apple and Microsoft is still an ongoing war, but I'll pose a real question to you. Who had the more charm and charisma, Steve Jobs?
Hi, I'm Steve, and welcome to my weekly podcast, Super Secret Apple Rumors.
Or Bill Gates?
Hello, I'm Bill Gates, chairman of Microsoft. In this video, you're going to see the future, Windows.
Leave your comment down below. In 2001, Apple unveiled the iPod, and for the kids who might have heard of it, it was sort of like the Walkman of the 2000s, or the Microsoft Zoom, but successful. Only a couple years later, Apple also introduced iTunes in the iTunes store that you could then sync to your iPod. By the way, to all your iTunes users, U2 will be performing in Ohio this coming October, so don't forget to bring your pitchforks and burning torches. 4 years later, in Stanford University, Steve Jobs delivered a very honest and inspiring reflective speech about everything he's done at Apple, his firing, his return, and pretty much stole my idea for this video. But in that speech, he said this.
I had a scan at 7:30 in the morning, and it clearly showed a tumor on my pancreas. I didn't even know what a pancreas was.
What a stupid man, am I right? But to help him out, and I hope he's listening, our pancreas is simply a large adrenal gland behind the stomach which secretes digestive enzymes into the duodenum. Embedded in the pancreas are the islets and the Langerhans, which secrete blood into the hormones, insulin, blood, and glucagon. See? Simple, everyone knows that. He obviously needed to watch more House MD like I did. Anyways, later on in the speech he said this.
You live each day as if it was your last. Someday you'll most certainly be right. It made an impression on me. And since then, for the past 33 years, I've looked in the mirror every morning and asked myself, if today were the last day of my life, would I want to do what I am about to do today?
These are words that resonate with me till this very day, which is why I snort coke, punch out women and make YouTube videos every day. Steve introduced podcasting to iTunes by explaining what the hell podcast even was by showing a demonstration by the founder of all podcasting, Adam Curry.
I've actually had to restart the show 3 times. My Mac has been acting up like a motherfucker. I don't know what's going on. I think it's something to do with the file system.
Okay.
It was all fun and games, and the partnership of Adam and Steve helped kick off the podcasting phenomenon, even though the Christian fundamentalists decided to protest against any partnership involving Adam and Steve. Despite the immense success they've achieved with iPod and iTunes reinvigorating Apple back to the top of the food chain, there was yet to embark on the most successful product of all time, the iPhone. Reality distortion is what they claim Jobs to have, which is strange as they also accused Bill Gates of having the same thing when he said Vista was a great service. There was still some criticism of Apple and how they manufactured the iPhones. Chinese workers were being paid minimum wage, which caused an outrage of epidemic of suicide attempts and successes. But paying the minimum wage makes sense since most of the iPhones were made of origami, and that novelty wore off eventually. Should have worked for free in my opinion, but they also get free iPods, so they have something for them to eat every night. Over the years now, the iPhone, much like Steve Jobs himself, became slimmer, lighter and better looking, but didn't last long without recharging of course. In 2010, Jobs made a bigger tablet-like device called the iPad. It was the year of the copycat, he said in a keynote presentation, exposing those other companies were leeching off their success too early, copying an innovative idea while they couldn't come up with one themselves. I guess all those other companies were biting Apple. Anyway, Steve Ballmer was manager of one of those competitive companies,
Microsoft.
and I think I found the still of him at the exact moment he decided to bite Apple. It has now been 8 years since Jobs has passed away, roughly about 32 business quarters. If Jobs was alive today, no doubt Apple stocks would radically increase to unprecedented heights, so I recommend buying Apple shares right now in case of a post-apocalyptic world. Until that day happens, Apple is still going at it when thriving this modern day past Jobs. They had their little innovations here and there with a smaller iPad, a slimmer iPhone, another slimmer iPhone, a smaller iPhone that you could wear on your wrist, a smaller iPad, and then a larger iPhone confusing those who wanted a smaller iPad. Safe to say their innovation started to stifle. They made an Apple Pencil for God's sake, and their marketing campaign as well as the pen itself was getting more out of hand.
I have a pen, I have an apple.
Imagine hearing a PPAP joke in 2019. That's how cutting edge this channel really is. But in late 2016, Apple was back and reinvented things like they used to, as they introduced the world to a new MacBook without the Mac. Yes, it was just a book, but nothing but giant pictures with each page showing the history of Apple products. I guess having an Instagram account was not affordable enough, but many third-party developers are now interested in producing their own pictures and hope it will be compatible for the next book update. Pretty much from then to now, Apple has been on a roll. I mean, they've still caused great controversy when they removed the headphone jack from the iPhone lineup. As part of the diversity quota, they'll release a foot phone Jill. Very good news for Apple because Quentin Tarantino were pre-ordering 20 million units when it's time, but no one else really wants it except for some bluesers. But Apple doesn't seem to hear our complaints, mainly because of the lack of a headphone jack. It wasn't until Apple started to reinvigorate the market again that I realized I need to find a synonym for reinvigorate to stop repeating that word. Apple bolstered the market when they unveiled the new line of MacBooks, and they caught everyone by surprise when they announced that the iMac stand will retail at $999 US. Of course, to keep that stand up, another additional stand needs to be purchased at only $1,800 or $1,799 to make it seem like it's much more affordable. And of course, to keep that stand up, you can buy a special Apple Viagra in your local chemist shop unless you're very seductive, then there's no need. Now, if you remember, Trump accidentally called Tim Cook at a conference, and really, does it really surprise anyone? President Trump does not have his hands in the tech business since he's a president of a country, very different to what Tim Cook does. I mean, we're comparing apples to oranges here. That's it, yet for another video on my channel, and just before my next upload about whatever, I'll just preemptively send this message out and say, have a happy 2025 everyone. And before I finish, there's one more thing. I don't have anything else to say, I just wanted to make that reference. See you in the next vid guys.